Dad, she walks with him 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes she doesn't get home until 2 or 3 in the morning. She returned at almost 7 o'clock this morning. Dad, I'm scared, she confessed, her voice trembling with fear. I swallowed hard, suppressing the bile rising in my throat. Do you know who this man is, Stacy? I asked with concern in my voice. I think his name is Donald. Donald Connolly? The daughter replied, trying to remember the scant information she had. Yes, that's him. I only saw him once when he was picking up Mom. A tall, thin guy with short black and gray hair. If it's him, then he's the mayor, she explained, her voice full of uncertainty. He drives a big fancy car and sometimes picks up his mom in a limo, the daughter continued, piecing together the information. It makes sense. Katie worked for his campaign. Maybe she just went to a party with him or something. But if that's the case, why is she coming home so late? I need you here, Dad. Come back home, please, she pleaded, desperation in her voice. Honey, I'll see what I can do. But whatever you do, don't tell Mom anything, I warned my daughter. I will do my best. I love you, Stacy, I assured her. I love you too, Dad, Stacy replied. My name is Robert Crawford. I'm 42 years old. I work as a design specialist for a large electrical engineering company. Having completed all the necessary documents, I managed to get 30 days of urgent family leave. A long, tedious flight took me to the airport of my hometown, where I rented a car and went home. It was Friday evening around 6:30 p.m. when I parked the car a few doors away from our house. The darkness of the November evening was accentuated by glowing street lights, creating an eerie atmosphere in the area. Lights were on in the windows of my house, illuminating the living room, kitchen, and bedroom upstairs. And there I saw my wife, who passed by the window several times, unknowingly waiting for my arrival. She seemed to be preparing to leave. I dialed my daughter's mobile phone number, and after 3 calls, she answered in a low voice. Daddy, is that you? Yeah, baby, don't say anything. But I'm here, just half a block from home. Oh, Daddy, thank you. Her voice trembled and she began to cry. Is your mom going out tonight? I asked. I'm pretty sure. She's been in her room for over an hour. I heard the shower, and now I hear her humming. She seems very excited about the upcoming night. Yes, probably, I replied. It makes me sick, Dad. Why is she doing this to us? Stacy asked, her voice full of anguish. I don't know, Stacy, and your mom might not know either. Let's not judge her until we know what's really going on, Stacy asked, worried about my next move. What are you going to do? What is it? She asked. I don't know for sure. I just wanted to cry. At 7, a black Mercedes pulled up to my door, and a tall, well-dressed man got out. Instead of heading for the front door, he spoke briefly on his cell phone, and the lights went out in the master bedroom. A minute later, my wife came out of the house, making sure that the door was closed behind her. Smiling broadly, she hurried to meet her companion. She looked stunningly beautiful, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw her look back at the house to make sure Stacy wasn't watching her. Then she kissed warmly on the lips with our infamous mayor who stole my wife, after which he helped her into the car, and they drove away. Fortunately, I managed to take a picture of the kiss on my mobile phone. I watched them from a safe distance, easily coping with the light movement. They drove across town and parked at the Radisson Hotel. Parking a few places away from them, I watched them get out of the car and enter the building, walking side by side, hugging each other. I discreetly took another picture. It was obvious that their romance had been going on for a long time. They were so comfortable together that they resembled a couple in love on a date. I waited until they were inside the hotel and, putting on a camouflage hat and sunglasses, followed them. Once inside, I didn't immediately notice them, but that didn't stop me. As usual, they smiled and thanked me for the service, which I did, at the same time glancing at the information board in the hotel. Among the listed events, one thing caught my attention: a charity ball at St. James Hospital. It was taking place on the third floor in the ballroom, and the sounds of a live orchestra were already reaching the hall. Ignoring the elevators delivering elegantly dressed couples to the ballroom, I decided to go down the stairs. Not wanting to attract too much attention to myself, and realizing that my legs could use physical exertion after sitting for a long time, I climbed the stairs. Going up to the third floor, I followed the music and found the ballroom without difficulty. I walked slowly past the entrance and stole a peek inside. They stood right in the doorway and behaved like a happy couple, greeting friends and fans. My wife looked around briefly and met my eyes for a moment, but there was no hint of recognition on her face. Why would that be? As far as she knew, I was still thousands of miles away, fighting flies, sandstorms, and the Taliban. And I also noticed that she wasn't wearing any wedding rings. After entering the ballroom, I hurried to the men's room and sat in a booth, trying to collect my thoughts and plan my next actions. I was trying to make sense of what I witnessed. I was so sure that my marriage to Katie was unbreakable and strong, as any marriage can be. What a fool I felt. While I was in Afghanistan, fulfilling my duty to the country, my beloved wife shamed me and violated our marriage vows. And what was wrong with all these people they met and greeted? Didn't they know that the woman who snuggled up to the mayor was married to an officer serving abroad? Warm tears flowed down my cheeks, but I quickly brushed them away. There was no time for self-pity. I needed to develop and implement a plan. At that moment, I had to fight not with the Taliban, but with another enemy. I sat in the toilet stall for half an hour, allowing the party to fully begin, and then headed for the doors of the ballroom. Only a few people at the entrance paid attention to me as I discreetly pressed myself against the wall, carefully maneuvering away from the bar and the tables with food. I found a vantage point behind a column from where I could see most of the hall. Although I didn't have a ticket to the event, my form had more authority than any piece of paper. The young man checking the tickets even saluted and greeted me when I walked through the door. A thought flashed through my head. It's a pity that my wife and her lover don't respect me and the uniform I wear with pride. It took me a few moments to find Katie and her companion. They swayed gracefully to a slow melody, my wife's arms wrapped around his neck, her head pressed against his chest, and his hands rested possessively on her buttocks. I managed to take a few pictures unnoticed, although I had to summon all my self-control not to jump out onto the dance floor and give the man a swift blow, punishing him for what he had done. But such actions would have brought only fleeting satisfaction and most likely would have led me to prison. I needed concrete evidence of their betrayal. Only then would I be able to develop a suitable plan of retaliation for their complete disregard for me, our daughter, and the honor of the U.S. Army. They danced another dance, then walked hand in hand to their table, exchanged intimate kisses and caresses before taking their seats. I captured every moment through the lens of my camera. After watching enough, I retired to the hallway and settled down there to discreetly observe the doors of the ballroom and the elevators. As an Army officer, I acquired the virtue of patience, and it bore fruit. It took another 2 hours before the event began to wind down, and those present began to leave the doors, heading for the elevators. It wasn't long before my wife and the mayor came out and struck up a conversation right at the door. After a minute, they exchanged smiles and turned towards the elevators on the left. But instead of pressing the down button, they chose the one that lifted them up. The situation seemed more than strange, especially since I was only 15 feet away from them, sitting on a bench against the wall, wearing a camouflage uniform and sunglasses. I had a name tag on my uniform, which set me apart from a sea of tuxedos and elegant dresses. Although many other couples noticed me and greeted me with smiles or hand waves, my wife and her lover went unnoticed. Their attention focused solely on each other as they entered the elevator hand in hand. I watched as their elevator stopped on the 11th floor, waiting to see if it would go up any further. To my surprise, this did not happen. Moreover, he went back down to the 3rd floor, where several more couples were waiting to descend into the lobby. I returned to the reception desk, realizing that my request was very unusual. But I had an urgent message for Mayor Connolly, and I was instructed to deliver it to him personally. After presenting my official ID, I asked, "I need to know his room number. This is very important." The young woman behind the counter looked worried. "Sir, I'm afraid I have no right to divulge such information." I stressed, "Girl, if this wasn't a matter of extreme importance, do you really think I would have come here in my uniform?" She nodded a few times and then checked her registry. "He's in room 1114. "Thank you, miss," I said. I went to the elevator and pressed the button for the 11th floor. As I passed room 1114, I looked back to make sure that there was no one else in the hallway. I put my ear to the door, but all I heard was a quiet conversation. I continued walking down the hallway until I found the door leading to the stairs. Anticipating that the door might close behind me, I slipped a handkerchief between the door and the latch. Glancing at my watch, I noticed that it was already midnight. Stacy mentioned that her mother usually returns home between 2 and 3 o'clock, and one case was when she returned at 7. It looked like I had a long wait ahead of me, but Army training and patience have always helped me. Through the window and the door, I could clearly see the room where they were, so I would not have missed them as soon as they finished their intimate meeting. While I was waiting, I tried to focus on the task, but the truth is, my thoughts kept returning to the image of another man passionately making love to my wife, a woman who swore to be mine alone. You could say that my heart was shattered, but it's not just that. My whole life seemed to be rolling into a dark abyss filled with pain, rejection, and humiliation. I knew I had to control myself for my daughter's sake, but the realization that the woman I loved most in the world, the woman I trusted with every fiber of my being, was completely giving herself to another man at that very moment overwhelmed me with an irresistible wave of suffering. Around 1:30 a.m., I cautiously went out onto the landing and pressed my ear to their door. Faint sounds resembling moans reached my ears. Then I distinctly heard my wife's voice shouting, "Yes! Oh my God! Yes!" It was the same scream that I had heard countless times when she climaxed with me. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I retreated to the stairs. I decided that they would finish their business soon and leave their love nest within the next hour. At 2 o'clock, I left the landing for the last time and sat against the wall next to their room, patiently waiting for them to come out. My mobile phone was set up for video recording, and 15 minutes later, I heard the chain being removed from the door, and it opened. I started recording them leaving the room. He put his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned against him, smiling a satisfied smile. Katie looked fresh and well-groomed, and Donald Connolly radiated a sense of satisfaction. After exchanging a brief kiss, they both turned towards the elevators. At that moment, Katie noticed my presence, leaning against the wall. "How did it go, Katie?" I asked with a hint of sarcasm in my voice. Katie's face paled when she finally noticed me. She put her hand on her heart and screamed, "Oh, Bob, no, please, this can't be happening!" Stunned, she fell to her knees. It took a few moments before her lover realized who Katie was talking to. Finally, he said, "Hi, man." "Everything is not as it seems," he said, trying to justify himself. "Katie was helping me with my new company." I could feel the disbelief in their eyes. "Of course I can guess," I continued sarcastically. "I think the destruction of her marriage is just a new campaign tactic. I wonder how the voters will react when they find out that you had an affair with the wife of an army officer when he risked his life to defend our country in Afghanistan." Katie's lover tried to intervene, claiming that there had been no affair. But Katie couldn't help but tell him to get out and not make a fool of himself. I witnessed kissing in my own house and on the dance floor. I could hear them moaning and whispering behind closed doors. "Congratulations," I said bitterly. You have conquered my wife. I'm sure you're both proud that this happened behind my back while I was miles away risking my life. You're both cowards. Even our daughter knows what you were doing." Katie's lover stood stunned and speechless. At this time, my wife collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. "Don't come home today, Katie. Spend the night with your lover." "I will calm our daughter down, and on Monday I will file for divorce," I announced, my voice full of determination. "But before that, I will make sure that the media finds out what kind of mayor runs this city." I had 30 days of emergency leave, and I made it clear to them that they should stay away until I returned and decided how to move on. "Please, Bob," Katie begged, her voice trembling. "What's the matter, please, Katie?" I replied, feeling my anger boil up. "Please forgive the fact that you cheated on me all the time while I was on a business trip, maybe even longer. Please don't tell our daughter about what I've done." Katie's pleas went unheeded when I told her that it was our daughter who informed me that I had to return home. "I can't understand why you did what you did, but you must have your reasons," I said, and there was humility in my voice. "I hope you really love each other because from now on, all you have is yourself." With that, I turned around and went to the elevator. "I'm really sorry, Bob," Katie's voice came from behind. "What are you apologizing for, Katie?" I replied, unable to hide my bitterness. "I'm sorry, what did I find out? Am I sorry that I caught you in the act with your new lover? Are you sorry that you ruined our new life as a respectable couple in this city?" I watched them both leave the room, and not once did I see a hint of remorse in their eyes. "On the contrary, you turned out to be the happiest couple imaginable. Have a happy life. No, go to hell and perish, both of you." I entered the elevator and pressed the exit button to the hall. When I got home, Stacy was already waiting for me, tears streaming down her face. She threw herself into my arms. "Daddy, I've missed you so much. I'm so glad you're home." "I missed you too, baby, more than words can say." "Did you find them, Dad? Mom and the mayor?" "Yes, baby, I found them, and I'm sorry to say it." "You were right. I don't think your mom will be coming home for a while." "I don't care, Daddy. She's been ignoring me since you left. Please take me with you when you leave." "Darling, I have to go back to Afghanistan in a month, and as much as I would like you to come with me, you have to stay here." "I can't stay with her, Dad. I hate her." "No, Stacy. No matter what your mother did to me during our marriage, she's still your mother." Stacy wrapped her arms around me and I held her close while she cried. After convincing Stacy to go to bed, I cordoned off the house and installed door locks in case Katie decided to come back. I had no proof that Katie and her lover were using our bedrooms for their affairs, but I didn't want to take any chances. I slept on the couch, although I couldn't be sure that they weren't having sex there too. Sleep came in short bursts. 45 minutes here, half an hour there. I couldn't stop thinking about how I would behave in this situation when Katie arrives to pick up her things before I leave in 30 days. I could have done the human thing and booked a hotel room, leaving the house to her discretion. But I couldn't bring myself to be so kind. She's the one who ruined our marriage, so she could have suffered minor inconvenience if she'd been evicted from home for a month. Besides, I was sure that her lover would gladly accept her. They behaved like a married couple. Now they could live as spouses, at least temporarily, and call it a trial marriage. At least we managed to get some rest before noon. I woke up first and made coffee. Then she made toast and scrambled eggs for both of us when Stacy finally came out of her room. We made small talk during the meal, and when we were putting the dishes away and loading them into the dishwasher, the phone rang. Stacy and I exchanged glances, and she picked up the phone. "Hello? Oh, hi, Mom. Yes, he's here. No, I don't think he wants to talk to you. Why would that be?" There was a pause while she listened. "Mom, really? It's hard for Dad and me to believe that you're sorry." "It's not like you made the mistake of kissing a guy once. You've been having an affair with your boyfriend since your dad left." There was a long pause. Yes. I told Dad that I need him to come home. Pause. Mom, you've been ignoring me for months now. The only thing that occupied your thoughts, the only thing that was important to you, was your affair with Donald Connolly. Pause. Mom, please think logically. Why would I tell Dad not to hurt Mayor Connolly? This evil man deserves to be hurt, and badly, for what he did. I'm sorry, Mom. That's not going to happen. Stacy turned to me with a startled look. Dad, it's like she doesn't understand what's going on. She acts like her cheating on you doesn't matter and she can't understand. She doesn't understand? I assure you, by the time I'm done with both of them, she'll understand the consequences of her actions and how many people she's hurt. The house was quiet most of the day. I tried my best not to think about what Katie might be doing with her lover, and Stacy tried to engage me in conversation to keep my mind occupied. We discussed what would be best for her when I returned to Afghanistan. I thought it would be better for her if she stayed in her house, attended her school, and socialized with friends. But Stacy was afraid that her friends would turn away from her after learning about her mother's terrible deeds. I assured her that her real friends would support her, but she didn't believe it. We agreed that I would call my mom and find out if Stacy could stay with her until the end of my service, hopefully in another 5 or 6 months. Late in the evening, the phone rang again. It was Katie. I replied, but as soon as I heard her say, Bob, please give me a chance to explain everything, I handed the phone to Stacy without saying a word. What, Mom? Stacy's voice was full of anger, and she held the phone to her ear so I could hear what her mother was saying. Stacy, I need to talk to your dad. I've already told you, Mom, that he doesn't want to talk to you. But I have to explain to him. What should I explain, Mom? What can you say to Dad to justify what you and Donald Connolly have been doing for the last 6 months? It's not what you think, Stacy. Yes, Mom. That's exactly what Dad and I think. You betrayed us both in the most horrible way that only a woman can betray her family. Shame on you, Mom. Shame on you. By this point, Stacy was already yelling at her mother. Katie could be heard crying. I didn't mean to offend anyone, Stacy. Mom, you've hurt so many people. The people who loved you more than anything in the world. And you broke the heart of the only person who would do anything for you. I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope your cheating was worth it because it cost you your family, whatever that means to you. I just hope that one day you will wake up from this fantastic world you live in and realize how selfish and stupid you were. Oh, please, Stacy, I love you and your dad. Yes, that's right, Mom. And pigs fly. If you really loved us, you would have done better. And I don't want to think about what you would do if you really hated us. Now, do you need anything, or can I go back and spend time with Dad? I heard Katie crying. I need something, she said softly. I need clothes, I need them. I need my pills. The last part sounded quiet. What are these pills, Mom? Oh my God, my pills, my birth control pills. Of course, how stupid of me. We can't have you carrying the mayor's illegitimate child with you, right? It will really ruin your image, right? It's hard to dance on the dance floor when you're fat and pregnant, isn't it? Well, I'll tell Dad, and I'm sure the two of us can pack your clothes and birth control pills. Will I take my makeup too, Stacy? Oh, sure, Mom, sure. As the queen of the city society, you must look beautiful for His Royal Highness the Mayor and your adored audience. I'll make sure that everything is laid out on the curb by 6 in the evening, and you can come and pick it up. Have a nice evening, Mom. With that, she hung up the phone, and Stacy immediately burst into tears. I hugged my daughter. You were hard on your mom, Stacy, I said softly. I know, she hiccuped. I'm not proud of it, but I was so angry that I couldn't help myself. I just needed to throw it all out. I understand, baby. We'll get through this, Stacy. We will not let them win. I hugged her once more and left her to pack the things her mother needed, and I went to my office. I needed to think, and there was a lot to do in the next few days. My military training made itself felt. allowing me to methodically plan my future actions. I was able to make battle plans, and this situation was no different from the others. The usual tasks were simple: find a good divorce lawyer, cancel our joint credit cards, get new credit cards in my name and Stacy's name, change the beneficiary to Stacy in my life insurance and retirement plan, and transfer half of the money in our accounts to new accounts available only to me and Stacy. The hardest part was deciding what to do with Mayor Connolly. He needed to be punished, and in such a way that he looked like nothing more than a coward stealing wives. The step towards achieving this goal was taken at 8 o'clock in the evening, when I received a call. "Crawford residence," I replied. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. "Is this Robert Crawford?" the man asked. "Yes, Major Robert Crawford," I replied, adding this clarification for clarity. "I'm Ray Swanson, a city councilman and friend of Mayor Connolly," he introduced himself. Curious, I asked about the little misunderstanding that my wife, I, and the mayor had gotten into the night before. A little misunderstanding? Is this how they talk in the city about my wife's affair with Donald Connolly at the Radisson Hotel until 2 in the morning? I replied. Swanson tried to defuse the situation by suggesting that it was just a night out by two adults who, by mutual consent, had a little too much alcohol. But I rejected his attempts, saying that there was nothing to discuss. Swanson continued to insist, stressing that Mayor Connolly's reputation and the possible consequences for all involved in the process were at stake. Annoyed, I questioned his notion of everything and explained that I was only worried about my daughter. "The rest of you can go to hell." Undeterred, Swanson hinted that harm could befall anyone who damages the mayor's image. "Are you threatening me, Ray?" I asked. "No, I'm just stating the reality," he replied. "I wouldn't want anything to happen to you or your loved ones." I angrily warned him to listen carefully. "I have spent the last 6 months in confrontation with the Taliban, causing them pain and suffering at every meeting. I refuse to back down in the fight against an insignificant world that steals wives." I stressed that he and the mayor had never faced an opponent like me. Their imaginary power meant nothing to me. My future ex-wife did not inform the world about this important fact before entering into a relationship with him. Swanson's financial support meant little to me. I was supported by all the men and women who served in the U.S. Armed Forces within 100 miles. You see, we despise men who take advantage of soldiers' wives while they are fighting abroad. We treat them with contempt. Here's a tip for you, Councilman Swanson. You should distance yourself as much as possible from Mayor Connolly. Otherwise, you may face the consequences of the impending storm that will hit your dear friend the mayor. Let's try to be reasonable. Perhaps there is a significant amount of money that could make amends for the offense caused by this unfortunate incident. But there are no hard feelings here, Ray. There is only strong and well-founded anger that a man like Donald Connolly could use the wife of a soldier who fought for his country. No amount of money will make it disappear. The only way to end this that will satisfy me is to see Connolly and my wife experience the pain they caused my daughter and me. You have my permission to send this message to both of them. Advise them to indulge their desires as soon as possible, because very soon they may stop feeling the desire to do this, at least with each other. Major, listen, I'm in a difficult situation. As soon as this becomes known, heads will fly. There must be a way to make this situation disappear. If you really want this to happen, Connolly should publicly admit that he had an affair with the wife of an army officer when he risked his life in Afghanistan. Then he should apologize, admit his mistake, and resign as mayor, disappearing into obscurity. He can even take my unfaithful wife as a consolation prize. Nothing else will make me change my mind and publicly shame him. Wow, you're really serious, aren't you? I've never taken anything so seriously, Ray. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to cook dinner for myself and my daughter. Stacy came out of the garage. I left my wife's things on the side of the road, and someone I didn't recognize picked them up in a black Mercedes. Let's hope Connolly sent his man with your wife. Otherwise, good clothes will be on sale at Goodwill. I smiled at Stacy. I'm not sure if her birth control pills will end up in Goodwill. Stacy laughed. I packed her regular clothes, but I couldn't bring myself to take any of her fancy nightgowns. She has some pretty provocative ones that I've never seen before. The very sight of them makes me sick. It's okay, Stacy. Thank you for taking care of this. She just nodded her head. You know you're going to have to face her sooner or later, I said. I know, she replied, but only when I'm ready and the right moment comes. The rest of the weekend passed without any special events. Stacy was helping me with the laundry, and I was working out a plan to expose Mayor Connolly. On Monday morning, I contacted an employee of the local newspaper and made an appointment. John Foster, a respected reporter and former sergeant of my National Guard company, agreed to meet me at Denny's restaurant and have coffee. What can I do for you, Major? He asked. I have information for you, and what you decide to do with it depends only on you. It may seem self-serving, and in a sense it is. As you know, our security company has been in Afghanistan for 6 months now, I explained. Foster nodded understandingly. But you may not know that during our absence, Donald Connolly had a very public affair with the wife of one of our soldiers. Foster asked for the soldier's name, but I hesitated to name him unless absolutely necessary. I wouldn't want to talk about it if I was betrayed by someone like Connolly, I explained. I personally saw them together very closely. There are rumors that she broke up with her husband and is going to divorce, but that's not true, John. In fact, her husband found out about the affair only a week ago. There is no breakup except for the war, and there is no divorce, at least not yet, I clarified. Foster expressed doubt, understanding the possible legal consequences of unfounded accusations against the mayor. Do you have any evidence of an affair? He asked. Yes, I replied, showing him the photos and videos I had taken. Of course, I would appreciate it if the woman's face was a little blurred. Foster immediately found himself feeling awkward. Are you sure about this, Bob? Eventually, the truth will come out, he warned. I shook my head sadly. I know, John, but I'm going to have to put up with the shame. I didn't realize it while it was happening. While Connolly was sleeping with my wife, I was thousands of miles away from her, in that miserable war zone dodging bullets. The real shame lies with Connolly. You are one of us, so you understand what a betrayal it is to use a soldier in danger by having an affair with his wife, I stressed. Foster looked at me sadly and nodded. Let's see what I can do, he finally agreed. Are you sure this was happening all the time you were away? Yes, there are other people who have known about this all this time, but for their safety they cannot be named, I explained. I transferred the photos and videos to his mobile phone, ending our meeting. After spending another 10 minutes discussing the 3 dedicated people from our company who participated in the deployment, we said goodbye and went our separate ways. My next step was to find a reputable divorce lawyer. After doing a little research on the internet and reading the recommendations, I chose R.J. Collins ESQ, whose office was located in the city center. I've made an appointment for the afternoon. To my surprise, when I came to the office, I found that R.J. means revenged joy. A woman in her 50s, with graying hair and unkempt appearance, greeted me rudely. I wasted no time getting down to business. I informed her that I needed a divorce and warned her that it would not be amicable. In response, she rolled her eyes, admitting that divorces are rarely pleasant. But despite this, she was ready to act. Curious as to why my divorce would be unpleasant, she began to ask further. I explained that while I had been in Afghanistan for the last 6 months, the mayor of our small town had started an affair with my wife. Her eyes widened in shock. The pin she was holding slipped out of her hand as she digested the information she had received. You mean Connolly? Did I get it right? What is it? She asked. I nodded in the affirmative. Major, all my attention is at your service, she announced. For the next 30 minutes, I told her all the details, and she diligently took notes, stopping from time to get clarification or ask questions. She asked about our daughter, Stacy, confirming that she was 15 years old, and wanted to know how she felt about the situation. I said that Stacy despises her and doesn't want to stay with my mother when I return to Afghanistan. The lawyer informed me that Stacy's wishes would be taken into account by the court, given her age. But since she won't be able to accompany me to the war, she offered to consider alternative options. "Besides your wife, is there anyone else who could take care of her?" "What is it?" she asked. I named my mother and explained that I would contact her to see if she would be willing to take care of Stacy until my service ended in 6 months. The lawyer thought that my mother would be very happy if her granddaughter stayed with her during this time. We talked for almost an hour, discussing our financial situation and considering the possibility of reconciliation with my wife. But I stressed that the intensity of their bond would not allow Katie and me to survive this betrayal. I asked that the divorce papers be prepared immediately. Another week passed, during which Katie called home 5 times to talk to me. Each time I informed her that I would provide the necessary information later and quickly ended the conversation. On Friday, my lawyer informed me that the divorce papers were ready to be served. All she had to do was point out the location. I informed her that I would invite Katie to my house next Monday at 2 p.m., during Stacy's stay at school. I contacted Katie on her cell phone to arrange a meeting on Monday at 2 p.m. at our house. Despite her attempts to explain her behavior over the phone, I interrupted her, saying that she would have plenty of time to explain when we met in person. On Monday, Katie arrived a few minutes before 2, and we sat down at the kitchen table. When I looked at her, my heart started pounding. She looked amazing. I think the affair with Connolly was good for her. "I have to inform you that the divorce papers will be handed to you soon." Her face paled instantly. "Why, Bob? I don't want this," she pleaded. "Well, I didn't want you to have a 6-month affair with Donald Connolly either, so I guess none of us will get what we want," I replied. "Bob, please, if you listen to me, you will understand why this happened and how we can move on." I nodded, signaling her to continue. "You know that I worked for Donald's election campaign," she began. "During this time, we often visited each other's company at various events and walks around the territory. We became friends. During your service, I felt lonely and depressed, and Donald offered me support. He became a listener to me. He helped me deal with the pain of missing you. One evening, he asked me to go to dinner with him. He suggested that I use my maiden's name and leave my wedding rings at home so that there would be no rumors. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I realize that removing the rings was a mistake," Katie admitted. "We met a lot of people that night, and they all saw me as a single woman." "When did the intimate relationship begin?" I asked, looking at her hands. She lowered her eyes, hesitating before answering. "Not immediately, although that night we danced in a tight circle, and when he took me home, he kissed me goodnight." I couldn't resist asking, "And you let him?" "I was lonely, Bob," she confessed. "I just spent a romantic evening with an influential and charming man who treated me like royalty." "He treated you like royalty while I was at war, and you think that gives you the right to disrespect me?" I asked, my voice full of disappointment. "No, it doesn't," she admitted. "But I was confused. You were so far away and I missed you so much. I don't know, he just made me feel good." Understanding her point of view, I nodded, encouraging her to continue. "After that, we started going to dinner a couple of times a week and attending more events together. I felt good with him, and I missed you less." I couldn't help but wonder about the intimate side of their relationship. "An intimate relationship," I said when she looked down at her hands again. "You've only been gone a month." 3 times a week he invited me to go home with him, and I agreed. But after that, I felt terrible and made him take me home. I told him that I couldn't see him anymore, that I loved my husband, and I couldn't believe that I was unfaithful to you while you were fighting. Donald left me alone for a few days, And then he called and told me how much he missed me. He said he wanted to see me again, but only as a friend. He promised that he would never put me in a compromising position again. That weekend, he invited me to a party at one of his friends' houses in Bluffs. It was an intimate party attended by only 5 or 6 couples, all very important people. One evening, the wife of a famous doctor asked me how I managed to capture the heart of the most attractive bachelor in the city. She caught me off guard, and I couldn't come up with a plausible answer, so I just told her that I had separated from my husband and that we were getting divorced. In a city of this size, this information spread like wildfire, and I felt trapped. I spent the weekend with Donald at his house. The rest, as they say, is history. Yes, I'm heartbroken that I hurt you and Stacy Bob. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I'd give anything to fix it. No, I can't. Do you love him? I do not know if I love him. I really like him. We have so much fun together. Yes, I remember. Intimacy classes can be a great entertainment. Is he a better lover than me? No. Oh, I don't know. It's completely different. Have you been staying with him since I found you at the hotel? Yes. And you're still having intimate sex with him? Yes. Are you going to marry him? I don't know. We've already talked about this. The doorbell rang. I think it's for you, Katie. She got up and walked slowly to the door. Are you Katie Crawford? She nodded affirmatively and was handed a manila envelope. You have been served. Katie stood for a long time and stared at the door, holding the envelope in her hands. When she finally closed the door and turned around, I saw that she was crying. So, it's really over between us, Bob? Yes, Katie, it's really over. You've seen for yourself. But I love you so much. No, you loved the life we had, but you threw it away. Now you have to look for another life. What about Stacy? She expressed a desire to go and stay with my mother until my business trip is over. Katie couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She sobbed uncontrollably, doubting her actions. The next day, a shocking photo appeared on the front page of a local newspaper, accompanied by a headline that said who this unknown married woman was who was seen leaving a hotel room with Mayor Connolly. In the picture, Katie and the mayor exchanged kisses as they left the room. The caption under the photo asked if her military husband, who is currently serving in Afghanistan, knows about this. The article gave details of a charity event the two of them attended and cited hotel records confirming that the mayor had booked a room for that evening. The article also mentioned rumors about their regular meetings over the past 6 months, while Katie's husband was on duty. The newspaper justified its decision to publish the material, citing the fact that it is important to shed light on the actions of a public figure and the impact they had on a soldier serving abroad. The situation quickly escalated. As soon as the story became widely publicized, the mayor's office went into damage control mode, strongly denying the accusations and calling the photo a fake. They accused unnamed individuals of plotting against the mayor and announced an upcoming press conference to clarify the situation. But the damage has already been done. Countless witnesses have seen Connolly and Katie together over the past 6 months, openly showing their affection in public. As a result, Connolly's friends and supporters began to distance themselves from him. Anonymous callers contacted the newspaper, admitting that they had repeatedly witnessed the affair and expressing outrage that Katie's husband was serving in the army at that time. When the mayor held his press conference that day, none of his city council allies sided with him. He was supported only by his staff, although some of them were absent. Newspapers and TV channels attended the conference, documenting the unfolding scandal. They received the divorce papers in the mail. Katie and I decided to end our marriage and move on. These changes hit me hard, but I had no choice but to accept it. I threw myself into my work, focusing on my duties as a soldier and trying to forget the pain of betrayal. As the months passed, the wounds slowly began to heal. From time to time, I received news from my daughter, who was now living with my mother and adjusting to her new life. It was hard being away from her, but I knew it was for the best. Over time, I began to find solace in communicating with colleagues. We fought side by side, leaning on each other for support and strength. The anger and resentment that consumed me before turned into determination and a fierce desire to protect my comrades. Despite the hardships and dangers of the war, I have gained a sense of purpose in my mission. The desert became my battlefield, and I directed all my emotions to fight for a cause that was above me. The pain of my failed marriage still hadn't subsided, but it no longer defined me. Eventually, my service came to an end and I returned home. I went back to my daughter, who has grown up a lot during my absence. We picked up the pieces of our lives and started all over again. The scars of betrayal remained, but I didn't let them mar the love and happiness that still existed in my life. I focused on being the best father I could be and cherishing the moments we spent together. Life went on, and I learned to forgive. I realized that people make mistakes, and sometimes these mistakes have devastating consequences. I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. And that's why I met them steadfastly and resolutely every day. The pain of a broken marriage served as a reminder of the importance of trust and honesty. I vowed never to let my heart be vulnerable to such betrayal again. I may have lost a part of myself in that scandal, but I also gained strength and resilience. Life goes on, and I intend to make the most of it. I am ready to accept whatever comes my way, knowing that I have the strength to overcome any obstacle. Connolly and Katie were no longer together when the scandal of their affair began. Connolly was removed from his position as mayor, and he left the country in disgrace, leaving Katie alone and without means to exist. And I returned to the service, but 2 months later I returned from Afghanistan. But I was seriously injured, and my daughter played a crucial role in my recovery. During the surprise attack, I lost one of my legs. I am currently working as a design specialist for a well-known electronics manufacturing company. And I live with my daughter, and from time to time I talk about the difficulties faced by soldiers while serving abroad. Gentlemen, the following story is fiction, but it is truly fantastic. So let's hear this cautionary tale of adultery and payback. Mr. Moore, you are in excellent health. Your cholesterol level is 127, and even the ratio of good and bad cholesterol is excellent. Your lungs are clean, your PSA levels are optimal, and you seem to have lost 5 pounds since your last visit. Simply put, whatever you do, keep doing it. The doctor jokingly added that if all his patients were as healthy as me, he would stop working. So Steve, it looks like you're all right. Do you have any specific areas that you are interested in? Maybe just a blood test? He looked through the results again, finding nothing remarkable. With a sigh, he closed my file. I will schedule your next appointment for next year through my nurse when you leave. I felt relieved. The burden of worrying that one of them might get HIV or sexually transmitted diseases has finally been lifted from my shoulders. Returning to work, I comforted myself with the fact that now I had one less worry. Now if only I could identify the potential culprits. I recently found out that my beloved wife, Beth, is having an affair with one of our friends. 9 years of happiness have passed, but now I'm thinking about taking revenge on both of them, but I'm in no hurry to act. Knowing that Beth has not infected me with any incurable diseases gives me a sense of relief and the luxury of time. I have no intention of having a physical relationship with her again. I'm curious, how did I find out about this? Well, she admitted it herself. She bluntly confessed, "Steve, I'm having an affair." She found a way to approach him more subtly. It was early, about 9 o'clock in the evening. The day was quite pleasant, and I felt quite affectionate. In the most seductive tone, I asked, "Darling, don't you want to have some fun tonight?" She replied, opening the book, "Not today. I'm a little tired and I just want to relax." I suggested, "I can help you relax. How about a soothing neck and back massage? Dismissing my suggestion, she firmly stated, Steve, all you want is to undress me, but that's not going to work today, and went back to her book. You never seem to be in the mood. I don't want to do this for you anymore. Sometimes I think you've lost interest. She sighed, placing the book on her lap. Well, maybe if we made efforts more often than once every 2 or 3 weeks, the spark could flare up again. Steve, why don't you understand? I don't want you today. It's so simple. I stood there, shocked by the words that came out of the mouth of my beloved wife. I grabbed a pillow and headed for the bedroom door. And what are you going to do now, Mope? She grumbled back. Don't worry. I won't bother you anymore, neither today nor in the future. Since I'm no longer satisfying your needs, I guess I'll have to look elsewhere for satisfaction. I informed her of this as I walked through the hallway and into the spare room. I heard her say my name before slamming the door shut and locking it. I don't want to beg for intimacy anymore. If she doesn't want me anymore, then I've accepted it. I tried to fall asleep, but this problem occupied my thoughts all night. The next morning, I came down the stairs shortly before 7, feeling exhausted and still furious. I apologize for my words and actions last night. I didn't mean what I said, and I was just exhausted. Beth, what are you trying to do? Are you offering me a consolation prize? Do you hope that if I let you go, then everything will be forgotten? Well, forget it. I wouldn't even think of touching your body if it was the only thing left on earth. I waved it away angrily. So don't worry, I won't ask you for intimacy anymore, I said, grabbing my briefcase. I probably won't be home for dinner tonight. The very sight of you makes me sick. With that thought in mind, I left. Beth must have called me on my cell and work phone hundreds of times that day. After lunch, she started bombarding me with emails, but I blocked her so I wouldn't bother apologizing. In the last 6 months, she had turned into a complete jerk, and I was exhausted by it. Our intimate meetings were rare, maybe once every 2 weeks, and even then I had to practically shame her. There was always some excuse, and if some of them were justified, then most of them were not. I used to look forward to coming home and making love to her. I planned to create a mood, perhaps with a relaxing back or leg massage using aromatic oil, but she didn't seem interested in delaying the process and just wanted to get it over with as quickly as possible. Feeling a little disappointed, I decided to have dinner on my own, and then stopped by a local bar to have a couple of drinks while watching the game. When I finally got home, it was well past 11. At first I thought about sneaking in quietly, but then I thought, and why? I didn't do anything wrong. As I was passing by our bedroom, Beth suddenly threw open the door and demanded to know where I had been. I replied in a defiant tone, on the street. Surprisingly, my answer took her by surprise and made her speechless for a moment. You never called and told me that you were okay. I could only wonder if something terrible had happened to you. But I guess if that were the case, I wouldn't have to worry about you bothering me anymore. I said this by inserting an offensive remark and twisting the knife even further. Now, if you don't mind, it's getting late, and I really need to get some sleep. I closed the door in her face and went to bed. I slept peacefully that night. Will you make me happy with your presence at dinner tonight? She asked in a dismissive tone. I haven't decided yet. Then how should I know? Well, dear, let me explain it to you in the following way. If I happen to be present, I will have dinner at this place. Conversely, if I am absent, I will not take any part in the meal here. Is that a sufficient explanation? Oh, Steve, please let me know when you're done with your childish behavior. Beth, may I suggest that you practice self-improvement? Unless, of course, you're already doing it with someone else. I directed my words at her, noticing a certain gleam in her eyes. Although she was indeed skilled, she was not exceptional enough to arouse such suspicions. How dare you accuse me of infidelity? She screamed at me. I decided to continue the conversation. Beth, if you don't get intimacy from me, then it's likely that you're looking for it elsewhere. Steve, please go to the depths of the curse. "I don't care if you'll ever come to dinner with us again," she exclaimed, piercing the air, and walked away, leaving me behind. Throughout the entire trip to work, her gaze haunted my thoughts. There was no horror in her eyes from the accusation of infidelity, but deep amazement and disbelief, as if I had touched a sore nerve. In this vast realm of the internet where you can find anything, I went in search of surveillance equipment. A simple search yielded a staggering tens of thousands of results, but I diligently filtered them out until I got to a more convenient selection of 100 options. I finally found exactly what I was looking for. I purchased a remote surveillance camera equipped with a recording device. Up to 4 miniature cameras could be installed in this device, and thanks to an extended memory chip, recording could take up to 5 days, which exceeded my requirements. I immediately ordered it and arranged for overnight delivery to my office. Now comes the most difficult part. Beth, my wife, stayed at home and looked after our 2 children, 7-year-old Dan and 5-year-old Amy. Figuring out a way to get her out of the house unnoticed without arousing suspicion would require careful thought. I didn't have dinner at home anymore, but I always tried to get back before 8 o'clock. I still had to work, so when I got home I decided to ignore her and spend time with my 2 children. I quickly mentioned that I needed to make a short trip to the store and asked if she could look after the kids for 20 minutes until I got back. I casually waved away her answer without even looking at her. As soon as she came out of the entrance, I hurried to the trunk of my car. I have thoughtfully placed cameras in various places of the house, including the kitchen, bedroom, basement, and back porch. In addition, I had a voice recorder that I was going to discreetly put under the front seat of her car. I put the base station and the old trunk in the attic, leaving only the power cord in sight. After testing them, I returned to the living room, where the children were engrossed in watching a movie. It was amazing to realize how tiny they were. Although I knew their exact location, even I found it difficult to spot them. The days ahead promised to be intriguing. On Wednesday night, Beth asked if I would join her to finish the Saturday barbecue at Dick's. Ignoring her presence, I replied that I would go with her or without her. You see, we were part of a group of 8 couples. There was a tradition in the local community that neighbors held monthly barbecues in different houses. Now it was Dick's turn to host the event. Since it was a potluck meeting, everyone brought their own dish. After receiving a charming invitation, I couldn't resist jokingly agreeing, "How can I refuse such a sweet offer?" But when we attended an event together on Saturday night, she deliberately kept her distance from me throughout the evening. When we participated in the doubles games, I did everything possible on purpose so that we would end up in last place. I've been diligently going through the records for 3 weeks, but I haven't found anything unusual. But one conversation between Beth and her friend caught my attention. I wanted to hear both sides of their conversation. It's been almost 4 weeks now, and he still refuses to be intimate with me. I didn't expect her to resist for so long. I admit, I may have hurt his pride, but he continues to pester me without a break. No, we are not talking about divorce. At least it's not that bad yet. Yesterday I bought an outfit at the mall that can revive even a lifeless creature. I'm going to prepare a surprise for him tonight, and if it doesn't work, then nothing will work. Well, at least I knew her plans for the evening, but I didn't know how to react. I guess I'll have to improvise and see how things develop. It is encouraging that she is still making efforts. Maybe I was wrong about her infidelity. Despite having advanced gadgets, I had no evidence to suggest this. I continued to have dinner outside the house, not wanting to disrupt my routine and arouse her suspicions. But still, I got home around 7:30 p.m. "Wow, you came home early today," she said cheerfully, and a smile lit up her face. "If you're still hungry, there's a delicious meatloaf in the fridge, and I just baked your favorite apple pie." She said it nonchalantly, knowing full well how much I love apple pie. She was definitely doing her best to make me happy. Around 8:30 p.m., I carefully carried our 2 exhausted children to their bedrooms, helped them undress and put them to bed, while Beth cleaned up the kitchen. Showering them with hugs and kisses, I turned off the light and went downstairs. Once I was settled in the living room, I turned on the TV and waited patiently. I didn't have to wait long because she was right. This outfit could wake up the dead. It was a combination of black and scarlet colors, designed to hide everything that is possible, and at the same time leave nothing superfluous. Good God, the sight of her made my head spin. "Do you have any free time for me tonight?" "What is it?" she asked, gracefully entering the room. My instincts screamed, "Yes, damn it!" But instead I calmly inquired about her intentions. "I have something in the bedroom that needs your attention if you're not too busy and upset about me," she hinted. "Well then, let's go take a look," I replied, ready to explore everything that awaited us. I don't have any pressing business right now, and I've forgotten the reason for my anger at her. She gently took my hand, leading me into the bedroom, and when we kissed, the sensations were as amazing as I remembered. It was an incredible feeling. We shared moments of intimacy twice, eventually falling asleep in each other's arms. Suddenly, I felt like I had a partner again. Life seemed blissful. In fact, it was more than that. Life was extraordinary. We rekindled our relationship, and I even took the initiative to cook dinner, letting her focus on other things before joining me for the night. Although it wasn't a nightly tradition, we always set aside Friday for special date nights. I had no idea that the simple task of turning off the tape recorder in the attic would change everything. After I rebooted it and took the memory card to my workplace, my once blissful existence collapsed. The tape was recorded on the 5th day, right after our incredible evening together. After deleting the previous 4 days, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to listen to it. At that moment, I imagined Beth enthusiastically telling her friends about how I had shocked her that evening. But what I overheard was not an ordinary conversation between her and one of her girlfriends. It was a conversation with someone else. A man. Last night I managed to solve our problem without Steve suspecting anything. It was surprisingly easy, and all thanks to the outfits you bought me. He was completely charmed by my presence even before we entered the bedroom. I was ready to let him take me that night. As I listened to the phone, the air was filled with laughter, and I had a burning desire to strangle them both. But don't worry, I just need to give him a taste of what he wants from time to time to ensure his happiness and satisfaction. I was sure he would notice, but after all this time, he probably won't be able to remember how it was before. I want him to be happy and contented so that we can spend all the time together in peace. She shared it with the person on the other end of the line, whoever he was. At this stage, we just need to be careful and not fall for the bait. You will focus on making your wife happy, and I will take care of my husband's happiness so that we have enough time for ourselves. Maybe we can sneak out during Saturday's barbecue to have some fun. I like good challenges. Well, it's time for me to end the conversation. I need to start cooking dinner, as the kids will be coming home soon, she said, distracting herself from the previous conversation. It was clear that I gave him some the day before yesterday, but to avoid suspicion, I decided to lie and tell him that I was on my period. I hope he never finds out the truth. Beth abruptly ended the conversation, leaving me to reflect on the state of our marriage. Desperately searching for answers, I reviewed the recording several times, hoping to decipher the identity of the person on the other end of the line. It was obvious that I knew him, or at least considered him a friend, despite his betrayal of my wife. At least I took precautions and reset all settings before leaving. I comforted myself with this thought. Even without the chip, I could use the small central computer that came with the device for 12 hours. Disappointed, I clenched my fists and muttered, "It looks like I'll have to go back to recording everything manually." The thought of revenge consumed me, and I vowed to make them regret that they were even born. Although I had no idea what my plan would be, I had plenty of time to think it through. First of all, I needed to test myself. In the conditions of chaos reigning around, The fear of contracting a venereal disease immediately came to my mind. It seemed like I was just lucky. I suspected that she might have infected me with a sexually transmitted disease, and I was terribly afraid of the consequences. But fortunately, it turned out that I was wrong. Now my main task was to find the culprit in this situation. To help myself with this, I took a notebook and listed the names of 7 couples with whom we regularly spent time. At first, I couldn't imagine that any of them could be involved in this. After all, these were our close friends, and I had known each of them for more than 3 years. It seemed implausible that any of these people could have an affair with my wife. But despite everything, it turned out to be true. Among these couples, our neighbors, like Dick, looked like a typical suburban couple, like us, aged about 30. I was filled with joy because Dick and I had a strong friendship. Not only was he my best friend, but he also had a deep affection for Beth. But I began to doubt his feelings, wondering if they were too strong. At the same time, Mary and Ron, being the eldest in our company, were approaching 50 years old. Given Ron's fragile heart, it seemed unlikely that he would have a romantic relationship with Beth. Thus, I excluded him from the list of potential suspects. Then my thoughts turned to Sue and Carl. I considered the possibility of Carl's involvement, but then I remembered that they were on a cruise at the time Beth received that mysterious call. The probability that Carl had called from the cruise ship was minimal, so he was also excluded from the list of suspects. Sonia and Jerome were a new couple in our neighborhood, having moved here from Chicago 3 years ago. Jerome worked as a traveling sales representative for a pharmaceutical company, which allowed him to spend most of his time away from home. Betty and Andy, on the other hand, have been our friends for about 5 years now. Whenever we got together, Betty had to keep an eye on Andy because of his beer addiction. Several times, someone had to help him get home after he had drunk too much. Although he flirted with the ladies while intoxicated, it was hard to believe that a drunk could be good in bed. But I couldn't help but wonder if he would be different when he sobered up. Despite my doubts, I continued to consider the idea of continuing a relationship with him. Of all the couples I knew, Vicky and Mike were the last couple I expected to see. Even after 6 years of marriage, they still seemed to be in the honeymoon phase. Their public displays of affection were, to put it mildly, excessive. I couldn't help but envy their undeniable chemistry. On the other hand, Beth and I had been married for 9 years, and compared to them we seemed like an old married couple. Well, at least she is. Without hesitation, I decided to keep Chris on my list. Donna and Chris, on the other hand, were a little different. At times, they seemed distant. It was obvious that they had money and they liked to flaunt it whenever possible. In some cases, I bit my tongue as Chris often showed his arrogant and pretentious nature. But somehow Beth thought she liked him, or so she was. Perhaps she was attracted to his wealth. There seemed to be no connection between Donna and Chris, and it made me wonder if there were problems in their relationship. Looking through the list, I noticed 3 names, one of which surprised me. Dick was my closest friend, but there were always rumors that your best friends were betraying you by getting into a relationship with your spouse behind your back. Andy seemed reliable, but the more I thought about it, the less sure I was. Chris, on the other hand, seemed quite possible. Since our monthly meeting was coming up in a week, I knew I needed to gather more information about each of them. When I got home from work, Beth asked me how to get Carl to paint the remaining 2 rooms upstairs. She felt guilty for using his services the last time he painted the bedrooms. He only charged her for the paint and a case of beer. I confessed that I slipped Carl a couple $100 before he and his wife went on a cruise. I explained to Beth that while friendship is important, we need to treat business separately. I needed time to think about everything, because we were in no hurry to paint the children's rooms. Beth insisted that we focus on the barbecue and then make sure the house looks nice. I objected that the house always looks good and asked who would even notice the paint on our walls upstairs. Beth explained that this is a feminine trait and that it is important to her. Disappointed, I muttered under my breath that Beth was a stupid witch. I vowed to find out who she was involved with at the upcoming party. I watched all the guys closely, watching their actions closely. Andy drank the beer quickly, as if it were water, and Dick kindly helped Beth arrange the food on the tables on deck. Chris, as always, showed his arrogance, and I felt that Beth was becoming more and more disinterested when he bragged about his success in trading Apple shares. Unless they were pretending, it seemed that Carl was losing favor in my eyes. As Carl and Andy became less likely suspects, my good friend Dick became the main candidate. Later, Dick stayed to help us clean up. "It was a great party, don't you think?" I asked him. He replied with a grin. "Yes, it looks like everyone had a good time, especially Andy." Betty playfully nudged him after his third beer and warned him that if he got drunk again, he would have to sleep on the couch. We both laughed at the situation. Then Dick leaned over and whispered to us, trying not to let anyone overhear. "Steve, can you keep an important secret, even from Beth?" I nodded in the affirmative. "I'm getting ready to take my wife on a second honeymoon. When we got married for the first time, we had little money, so we settled for staying in a hotel for the weekend. But this time I managed to book a 7-day cruise which departs in 2 weeks. Although I didn't tell her about it directly, I informed her boss to take time off. When I heard his words, my eyes filled with amazement. In my distorted mind, he became the top priority. Now he was sharing his plans for a second honeymoon. "Steve, I need you to look after my apartment," he asked. "The children will be looked after by her mother, but I would appreciate it if you would visit them once or twice." He grinned broadly and exclaimed, "She'll go crazy when she finds out. We will probably spend most of our time in the room, but fortunately I managed to get a room with a balcony so we can enjoy the views." "You're a lucky devil," I said, unable to contain my surprise. "How long have you been planning this?" "I've been saving money for almost 6 months," he replied. I was left stunned when Sue and Carl went on their honeymoon and shared their luck. I couldn't believe it when Sue called and sent a photo of the Mexican pyramids to my cell phone and email. How could Sue have called? "Steve, are you there? Cell towers are everywhere now, and there are satellites too. It may be expensive, but you can call anywhere in the world from a mobile phone. But I don't intend to do anything like that. I have other plans, if you get my point." "Okay, consider me stupid." I mentally crossed out Dick, who shouldn't have been included in the list at all. That left Andy and Chris, unlikely candidates. Who the hell was Beth involved with? Around 3 o'clock in the morning, it finally dawned on me. It was Carl. The next day at work, I connected all the dots and realized that it was Carl. He was a self-employed house painter and had a flexible schedule, and his wife worked in an office. Since Beth wasn't working, they could meet during the day and no one would suspect anything. It must have started when he was painting our upstairs bedroom 6 months ago, and Beth probably had an affair with him in our own damn bed. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Although the idea of putting a bullet in their brains crossed my mind, I couldn't risk going to jail, especially considering that I have children. So, Beth, on second thought, why don't we ask Carl to paint the remaining 2 rooms as well? Thus, the entire upper floor will be completed. If you don't mind, could you call him and arrange it? But from the very beginning, let him know that this time I intend to pay him for the job. I informed Beth about this during our phone conversation from my office. Since we're doing this, we might as well think about relaying the carpets in these rooms. "Steve, let's take it one step at a time. We have to keep our budget in mind. First, let's focus on the wall decoration, and then we'll think about the floor coverings." "You're probably right, dear. I don't know what I would do without you." "You're right. You're lucky to have me." 2 days later, when I was alone in my office and closed the door, I overheard their conversation. "Darling, you won't believe it. Steve wants you to paint the other 2 bedrooms upstairs. Isn't that fantastic?" I suppose you plan to pay me the same amount as last time? You can count on it. But this time there will be no need to flirt. I'll be glad if I don't have to play pranks for once. You can come over after the kids go to school, and we can spend as much time as we want. I like it when we spend intimate moments in my bed. I feel an exciting sense of mischief when Steve and I perform similar actions on these same sheets. She laughed. But Beth, don't forget that I still need to paint these damn rooms. Well, how long can it take? A couple of hours? I intend to extend this project for at least a week. We've never done it in a row for 3 days. Beth, please understand that I have to work to feed myself. I can't just come every day and meet your needs. Have you thought about asking your husband to contribute? He's completely useless and predictable. Beth, you really are a mean person. But remember that I'm just your mean person. Fortunately, they put an end to it after that. I was feeling queasy, and now it was time to come up with a plan that would bring them both to their knees. Dealing with Carl would be a piece of cake. I will send the video to his wife, and he will be burdened with finances for the rest of his days. But that's not all I wanted from these two cheaters. They humiliated me, and I wanted them to feel pain every time they remembered their actions. I wanted revenge. If I had just divorced Beth, she probably would have gotten everything, even though she was cheating. She would get the kids, the house, and I would financially support her for the next 13 years while she continued her affairs. A headshot would have taken her out of the equation, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I needed something in between, Beth exclaimed, frustrated by her seizures, and reached for 3 Tylenol tablets. It's ridiculous that we can't buy something stronger to deal with these damn cramps from Fig Gin. Why don't you go to the doctor and ask for something stronger? I asked. Beth sighed, clearly annoyed. Don't you think I've already tried? That doctor just prescribed aspirin ultra. If he had experienced the pain I go through every month, he would have understood, she said, leaning against the bathroom counter. Her words gave me an idea, but I had no idea how to bring it to life. But I was determined to find a way. There was a part of the city where everything and everyone was accepted, a place devoid of all morality and self-respect. I hopped into my old work truck, put on my worn clothes, and hit the road. My intentions were unclear, but I had a rough plan. I knew that I needed someone familiar with this area of the city to guide me, so I decided to contact one of the street sex workers. You're not a cop, are you? What is it? She asked cautiously. I grinned, trying to reassure her. Do I look like a cop? She rustled her gum, telling me about her services and prices. Taking a deep breath, I finally asked, Do you happen to know where I can find illegal substances? Her surprise was obvious when she spoke. You don't seem like that kind of person to me? I assured her that it was not for me, but rather for my wife, who claims that it enhances our intimate experiences. Considering this, I decided it was worth trying a few different substances. At that moment, it seemed that she was about to escape from the truck. How much money do you have? I asked, hoping that it would be enough for at least a small amount. Enough to try, I replied. I have to admit I don't usually do this, but since you're offering an extra $50, I might be able to help you find what you're looking for, she said. Handing me a cigarette, she said, Kent, I suffer from asthma, and it can be deadly. After instructing me, she added, Okay, give me $50 and go wherever I direct you. Handing her 2 $20 bills and 1 $10 bill, I continued driving. About 5 minutes later, we arrived at a dilapidated house that looked like a crumbling hut. She ordered, Give me $200 and wait here. Keep the windows closed and the doors locked. Don't pay attention to anyone who comes to the window. And if someone pulls out a gun, well, buddy, you're on your own, she grinned. Realizing that I was probably making a grave mistake, I continued anyway. Please hurry up, I begged. In response, she assured, Don't worry, lover, I won't leave you in the lurch. After getting out of the car, she walked through the door. It seemed to me that an eternity had passed while she was gone. More than once I thought about leaving, convinced that she had thrown me through the front door. When she finally appeared, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Go ahead, honey," she said simply, scanning the neighborhood, presumably looking for any signs of law enforcement. Smiling, she said, "I managed to get what you wanted, but it's going to cost you an extra $20. Perplexed, I reminded her, "But you said—" I hesitated before speaking, realizing that it was better to reconsider my words. In the end, I decided to give her the money, and in return, she handed over the desired items. Satisfied with the arrangement, I put everything securely in a plastic bag under the seat. On the way to work, I was extremely careful, changing cars and clothes along the way. After hiding the stash, I headed for the house, wanting to take revenge on both of them for only $300. My plan consisted of 2 parts. My intention was to run into Carl first, and then return to Beth as soon as she felt safe. On Thursday, returning home from work, I made sure to buy a prepaid mobile phone. I figured that by arriving early, I could catch Carl before he left my house. When I drove up to his entrance and noticed his truck, I realized that I had an opportunity. I quickly smashed one of his taillights and hid the illegal substances in a bag under the seat. As I entered the kitchen, I noticed Carl enjoying one of my beers while chatting with Beth. Casually addressing Carl, I inquired about his work, discreetly watching Beth for any signs of their affair. "Hey buddy, how's the job going?" I asked, shifting my gaze to Beth. Carl replied, "It should be finished by tomorrow evening. I just need to pop into the Home Depot for another quart of paint for finishing." He finished his beer, seemingly unaware of my ulterior motives. "I'll get you another one," I said, pouring drinks for both him and myself. "Just remember that this time I'll pay you in cash," I added, handing him 3 crisp $100 bills. "I'll give you the remaining amount tomorrow. True, I spent some of it on the way home, but I assure you I'm fine," I said, flashing a confident smile. While we were having a casual conversation, I realized that it was time to put my plan into action. I quickly came up with an excuse, saying that I forgot to pick up something from the store and would be back soon. Thanking Carl for his help, I left the room. A few minutes later, walking down the street, I noticed him drive past me, turning onto the main road. Feeling an urgent need, I dialed 911 to report the incident. 911, what's wrong with you?" the operator asked. "This man driving a white pickup truck is selling illegal substances to children in my neighborhood," I explained. I confronted him, urging him to leave, but he brazenly stated that he could sell his banned substances anywhere. "I'm chasing him down Main Street right now, right behind Marshall. The number of his white Chevrolet," I dictated the number of the car. "And the right taillight is noticeably broken," I said. Having provided the necessary information, I hung up the phone and began to look forward to the decision. But as time passed, and we continued to drive, it became obvious that my plan would not bring the desired results. Before reaching the exit from the Home Depot, Carl was stopped by a policeman, followed by another patrol car. The first officer approached Carl's truck, presumably mentioning something about a broken taillight. Carl got out of the car, and the 2 of them walked to the back of his pickup truck. At that time, a second officer appeared with a dog, which made me raise my fist in excitement. Believing that he had nothing to hide, Carl opened the door of his pickup truck and apparently gave permission to search the car. The dogs were wonderful. They quickly discovered illegal substances within a minute. I enjoyed every moment while Carl was handcuffed and put in the back seat of a patrol car. After watching enough, I went home with a big smile on my face. Although Carl's arrest was not in the news, his photo was posted on the county's arrest website. It's amazing how many people have nothing else to do but browse such information on the internet. One of the neighbors stumbled upon her, and the news spread quickly, especially because of the accusations of possession and distribution of illegal drugs. I knew Carl would most likely be convicted of possession, but since he didn't have much, It seemed unlikely that he would be convicted of distribution, but he had $300 in cash that I gave him. Most likely he is not facing a serious prison sentence, but this was not my main goal. I wanted to expose him, and I achieved this. "Sue, please let me know if I can help you in any way," I reassured her, still not believing what had happened. The last time I saw him, he and Beth were drinking beer in our kitchen, but that day I unexpectedly returned home. "Steve, I had no idea that Carl was using illegal substances. He claims she's not his, but she was in his truck. I'm not that naive," she admitted. "I thought he'd be done with your house by Wednesday. Sometimes I just can't understand his actions," she said angrily. "Well, if you need anything, you know where to find me," I offered. She expressed her gratitude again. At the next meeting, Carl became the object of jokes and discussions. Sue didn't come, and I didn't blame her. It was at this point that I began the second phase of my plan. Throughout the evening, I discreetly slipped a banned substance into Beth's drink. I made sure that there was enough alcohol in the drink to mask any taste differences. When I confessed that I had forgotten about the salad my wife had made, she was furious, especially since I informed her that I was too drunk to drive. I apologized and offered to take her purse and keys from Betty and Andy's bedroom, where we left our things. There, I quietly took 2 vials of the substance. Back outside, I handed Beth her things. In response, I jokingly asked for a long-term foot massage when we get home. Since there was only one road leading from Betty and Andy's house to our house, I resorted to a desperate plan. As soon as Beth pulled out of the driveway, I dialed 911 again. In a panic, I reported a dangerous woman driving a dark blue Toyota on Wilmore Street. She recklessly cut me off, knocking down 2 mailboxes and almost endangering my children. Not knowing if she was intoxicated or under illegal drugs, I begged the emergency service operator to intervene. After that, I destroyed the phone so that there would be no evidence left. Worried and unable to contact Beth either on my cell phone or on my home phone, I anxiously shared my experiences with Betty. "It's been over an hour now and I'm starting to worry if something has happened to her. Steve, let me give you a ride home, and Andy will drive around and see if she's stuck somewhere without a phone. It's possible that she just lost it. Let's try to find her." Betty and I drove up to a dimly lit house. I opened the door with a spare key and noticed an untouched bowl of salad on the kitchen table, exactly where I left it. It looks like she never made it home. While Betty was sorting things out with Andy, I noticed a flashing light on our answering machine. The first message was from my parents. They informed me that they would not return the children before 9, as they had plans for dinner. The second message was from Beth. She was crying and begging me to come get her because she was arrested for drunk driving and possession of illegal drugs. "Betty, Beth was arrested for illegal substances," I said, trying to feign surprise. "I don't understand. Beth does not take illegal substances. What's going on? Steve, where are your kids?" "At Mom's," I replied. "Why don't you call her and ask her to leave the kids while we go to the station and sort out the situation?" After calling, we left, not believing that such a thing could happen. First with Carl, and now with Beth. What the hell is going on? I've never seen her take anything stronger than aspirin, even though she said she needed something stronger for her monthly cramps. But she wouldn't do that, would she? Beth was detained for possession and use, and it will take me a whole day to release her on bail. "Beth, why are you using illegal substances? Did Carl influence you?" I couldn't contain my disappointment and screamed loud enough for Betty to hear. "How could you do this to us?" "Steve, this is a terrible mistake. I promise you that I don't take any substances. I have no idea how they ended up in my purse. Someone must have planted them there." "Beth, are you suggesting that one of our friends at the party planted them for you? Do you really think I'll believe that?" "Steve, you have to believe me. I am innocent." "Well, I won't be able to get you out until Monday when I can withdraw money from the bank. You'd better think about your actions and give me an explanation by Monday." She rushed towards me in a rage and my voice was full of anger. Steve, listen to me. I absolutely do not use illegal substances. You have to trust me. Do you really think I'm going to lie to you? You better not lie to me, Beth. And if you cheat, it will entail serious consequences. I'll ask Betty to take me home so I can pick up the kids from Mom. Don't worry, Betty is the only one who knows about your situation in prison. I left Beth crying, feeling a sense of satisfaction that everything had fallen into place. When Mom returned the children, I informed her that Beth had been detained by the police for possession of substances. At first, she believed it was a joke, until I assured her that I was being completely serious. Beth has been acting strangely lately, which made me suspect that something was going on that I didn't know about. I'm Steve, that I know Beth, and I'm sure that this must be a big misunderstanding. When the children were safely settled, I looked through the records for that week and found indisputable evidence that Carl and Beth had entered into a full-scale affair. The intimate part deeply disturbed me, but it was Beth's lies and disrespectful behavior towards me in front of Carl that caused the real pain. After suffering for a short time, especially watching her beg for actions that she previously considered disgusting, I decided to give it up. I made 3 copies of the tape and went to bed. After assuring my mother that she would look after the children until Beth was free, I went to work and met with my boss. I briefly explained the situation to him and announced my intention to file for divorce from Beth. To my relief, he advised me to take as much time as I needed and assured me that my job would be safe until I settled things at home. Lawyers can resemble sharks, especially when there is a hint of conflict. I scrupulously went through all the details, starting with how Beth was picked up, and then handed the recording over to my boss. This recording was extracted from our home security system. Imagine my surprise when, while looking through the recordings, I came across Beth's affair with the husband of one of our close friends to find out if she was using illegal substances. All I want is to complete this ordeal as soon as possible. I want to retain ownership of the house, custody of the children, and categorically refuse to pay alimony to this unfaithful woman. Don't worry. With the evidence that you have, I am sure that justice will prevail. Do you think victory will be easy? What's his name? What is it? He asked, looking at his notes. Carl's wife intends to divorce him. I haven't talked to Sue yet, but I suppose I can ask. Let her know. If she's interested, I'll offer her a 20% discount. We will be able to handle both cases at the same time using the same evidence. He handed me his business card, and I promised to talk to her. My next visit was to Beth's parents' house. June and Hank were kind-hearted people, despite their daughter's flaws. Steve, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work or something? Asked June. I need to talk to both of you for a few minutes, I replied. I informed them of the arrest and handed them a copy of the tape, explaining my intention to file for divorce. Steve, would you both try to see a psychologist or something? You love each other. You'll be able to get over it in time, Hank pleaded. Look at the recording and ask yourself if it was your wife. Could you forgive her? I can't, and I think you'll come to the same conclusion. Besides, I don't plan to bail her out of jail. Her bail is $3,000, and since it is her responsibility, I have withdrawn money from our savings to cover it. Please let her know that I don't want her in my life anymore. Never. I'll bring her things tomorrow morning, and I'd appreciate it if she didn't attend. He clearly understood my message. During the day, I changed the locks, split our savings and checking accounts, and packed her clothes. When my mom kindly picked up the kids from school and had dinner with them at her place, I had the opportunity to implement my latest plan. I opened a soft drink and dialed my cell phone number. Hi, Sue. This is Steve speaking. I started by saying, I really need to talk to you alone tonight, if possible. She replied, We're just about to have dinner. Sue added, You can do it at any time tonight. But about what? She asked curiously. I replied, This is something I would not like to discuss over the phone if you don't mind. Steve suggested, Why don't I come by 8? Will that suit you? I assured her, that would be perfect. I'll be waiting here. Sue quickly said she had to go, but I'll see you later. I couldn't help but wonder what was so important to discuss tonight. Later, I told Sue the shocking news. Beth was arrested for possession of illegal substances on Saturday night. She sighed. Oh my God, is she in jail? I replied, that's not the worst part. On Sunday, looking through the CCTV footage of our house in order to catch her using illegal substances, I discovered something else. I took Sue into the living room and turned on the DVD. When she saw her husband having an intimate relationship with my wife, all she could say was, oh my God. I stopped recording after only 30 seconds. It was obvious that she was as surprised as I was. After I exposed this traitorous bastard, it seemed to me that everything had finally returned to normal. In order to keep you informed, I extracted a copy and gave it to her. But after the first 20 minutes, I couldn't watch anymore and turned off the movie. I decided to divorce Beth and even met with a lawyer this afternoon, giving her a business card. I mentioned a 20% discount for her, saying if she was interested, although she didn't seem interested in what I wanted to say. Sue may not be physically different, but I wouldn't want to provoke her anger. She hurled a barrage of curses at me, calling Beth some unusual names, and I just nodded in agreement. By the way, do you have any drinks? Maybe beer, wine, or something stronger? Wine will do, she replied. I had a feeling that something was wrong, but I couldn't identify what it was. Now I understand why he seemed so cheerful when you hired him to paint these rooms, she exclaimed angrily, finishing her glass and going to get more. My lawyer advised me to warn you against confronting him while you're still angry. He is not sure how Carl will react, so he suggested calling the police and asking them to remove him for safety. This despicable man does not have the courage to raise his hand against me. But you're probably right. We continued to talk for the next 45 minutes. I didn't feel sorry for Carl, but rather for Sue and her little daughter. Sue immediately called the police, explaining the situation to them in detail. They assured her that the officer would arrive within 20 minutes. I'm sorry, Sue, I said. No need to apologize, she replied, glancing at my lawyer's business card. Please let him know that I will accept his offer and call him tomorrow. Worried, I asked, are you able to drive? She reassured me by saying, I'm totally fine. Steve, I'll get in touch with you. I feel sorry for this man. She will reprimand him severely. I delivered Beth's clothes on Tuesday morning. Her mother was in jail processing bail while we unloaded 12 garbage bags of clothes into their garage. Steve, I watched 2 minutes of the recording, and you were right, her father admitted. I wouldn't take her back either. In fact, I don't even want her to be here, but she has nowhere to go. I expressed my gratitude and left. The chaos began 3 hours later. Beth repeatedly called both her home phone and my cell phone, but I managed to listen to only a few of her messages, all of which were essentially the same. She desperately begged for forgiveness, claiming that Carl had seduced her and illegal substances had nothing to do with it. But I didn't want to grant her forgiveness. Sue, on the other hand, took decisive action. She kicked Carl out of the house and obtained a restraining order. He was allowed to take only his personal belongings and work tools, nothing more. Unfortunately, he managed to withdraw about 70% of the funds from the bank account before Sue could stop him, and she became furious. Together we applied for legal assistance and signed the necessary documents. Our lawyer assured us that it would not be difficult to get what we wanted, and that, in fact, was all. Carl did not resist, knowing full well that he was in a desperate situation. He readily gave up everything and returned most of the money he took from Sue. But Beth resisted. She insisted on custody and financial support, but her lawyer eventually convinced her to drop these demands after much persuasion. I granted her the right to visit, but without overnight stays. In just 5 months, it was all over. Although there was a connection between Sue and me, it didn't go any further. We remained good friends, and I tried to keep it that way. Despite numerous calls from my ex-wife, I made a conscious decision to ignore them. To cope with my anxiety and prepare for what lies ahead, I'm thinking of going to a therapist. But life goes on, and I hope to meet a decent woman ahead who will replace the mother of my children.